The war god took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and keep it.
Hi, Eden family. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Unscripted, where faith and finances are our focus. Today's episode is called Just Because You Can Doesn't Mean You Should. And given that faith and finances are the focus, hopefully your mind just kind of starts to go. So our opening scripture for today is Matthew 6:19 through 24. It says, "Do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven where neither moth nor rust destroys and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. The eye is the lamp of the body. So if your eye is healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eye is bad, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light in you is darkness, how great is the darkness? No one can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and money." What are your thoughts? What came to mind?
Really just two things for the last. You can't serve God and serve money. Mm-hmm. And it makes me think of the beginning, the creation, and just the order that God put in the beginning. And so you have God, and then you have Adam, and then God gives Adam instructions of you have dominion over the animals, and he makes him a manager out the gate, and that's what we're founded on. Mm-hmm. Put him in the garden and to manage and keep it. And so that structure, the same thing, naming the animals, you were supposed to name all the animals and you're supposed to assign. And so the same thing with us in finances, with your money. We are to do the same thing with our money. We tell our money what to do, and we assign it, and that's how we stay in control of it. That's how we stay the manager. But there's some things that's going on today where some people it's kind of flipped. The order is flipped, where money actually controls the individual. Mm-hmm. And that's backwards already out the gate. And what that does is that creates a pattern, a cycle, because now the money is telling you what to do, and you're kind of being pulled wherever the money is telling you to go. And you're not taking care of the things that you're supposed to be taking care of, and your money is coming in, going out, and you're steadily on this pattern of, mm-hmm. repeat. So that's what I think about. And the second thing that comes, the same thing with serving is, well, just that, not forgetting that we're here to serve.
Okay.
Because I know with the culture and everything today, a lot of people, they don't do things unless there's money attached to it. Some people say, I can't come unless mm-hmm. there's a certain amount. Mm-hmm. You got to pay for me to show up.
Even in ministry, right? Sorry, not trying to touch on, but just, it's the truth. Even in ministry, I'm not coming to play your XYZ unless...
That's what I was about to get to, that we got to be careful with, God has given us gifts. And like you just said, you're supposed to serve without a money amount attached to it. Mm-hmm. So even that, you can't serve God and serve money, because God says you're a servant. So well, you just said it. I didn't have to.
Sorry.
But no, I'm saying, but you just said it. I mean, but even the same thing, that again, today culture, just don't get so caught up in you only do things if there's a reward of money. Mm-hmm. Because like I just said, store your treasure up in heaven, because there are rewards that God is going to give us. And again, through your serving, you have rewards mm-hmm. that you will get in heaven. So yeah, just those two things to light touch. Light touch.
So what stood out to me, interesting, because you kind of went to you cannot serve God and money, and just harping on the serve, which is really interesting because my mind really didn't go there. My mind went specifically to the eye, right? Like what is it about the eye, right? So again, it says if your eye is healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eye is bad, your whole body will be full of darkness. And what it reminded me of, we've talked about food in some instances in some of the other episodes, but have you ever think back to some of those moments where it's like, whoa, I was like my desire or what I saw, right? Like think about Thanksgiving, for example. You see all this food and you just pile the plate up. But then when you sit down and eat it, you don't even have the ability to consume everything that you thought was good, but because it looked good, right? So that was the one super practical thought that I had. But then the second thought that I had was the garden, right? Because I believe that the scripture in Genesis says, and Eve saw that it was good.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's this idea that we're lusting, right? And even if you think about lust, right? Like what is that difference when you talk about lust and love and whatever, not to go into that, but it's this desire. I like what I see and I want to pursue that, right? So why do we do the things that we do? Right? Like what are we enticed to? What are we following that our eye sees that we're like, that looks good. That's what I'm going to go after. And even to your point, it could be money. It could be a person, right? Or it could be a status, a social status, whatever it is. But whatever we see that we decide in that moment, that looks good to me, right? That's what the rest of our body pursues, right? So if money is good to me, then I'm going to wake up every day and I'm going to go work, which is a good thing, by the way, right? Like we should be we should be some of the best working people. Like Christians should be some of the discipline and the hard work that God has called us to have through him, right? Like we should truly be some of the hardest working people out there. But when my motivation is wrong, right? That's where it's like, all right, what I see is enticing me and the rest of my body follows. Like that's kind of what came to my mind. So it's interesting that you went a different direction, but that's good, right? And also the scripture is so, there's a lot in there.
It's more. Yeah, it's way more.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
But also, right, I was going to say one last thought is this is why it matters who you spend time with, what you spend time watching, right? Like if what I see has the ability to entice me at any moment that I'm weak, right, then I shouldn't be certain places, right? You get what I'm saying? If I'm married, I probably shouldn't be hanging with, right? Not from a religious standpoint, but just because, be wise, right? Like if you are a married man or a married woman, really, right? Like, I mean, these days it goes either way, but what business do you have going out to the clubs and all this, you know what happens there, you know what the atmosphere is created for. And when you see these things, that truth that even as a Christian, it starts to get foggy because what I see looks good. And so now I may make a decision that I very well know I shouldn't make, right? So it's just interesting why God says like, it's the eye. And if you're not careful with what you allow to entice you, it's a slippery slope really fast, even as a Christian. So yeah, just using that wisdom. But to your point, you cannot serve God and money. And it would almost seem like the two are detached, right? Like, why does he go from the eye and like making sure that that's healthy and then kind of not closing, but then ending that section with, you cannot serve God and money, right? How often, how evident would it then have to be? I feel like God literally saying like, look, make sure that you keep a healthy perspective. Make sure that the things that you are pursuing are healthy. And by the way, you can't serve me and money, right? So I would just love for God to give me a statistic, like out of 10 people, is it 9 out of 10 times that he finds that it's money related, right? So yeah, just having wisdom, and this is why the Bible is good. Okay, so usually we kind of jump into a statistics or highlighting some sort of article. We're going to skip over that today because we have so much to talk about. So the topic again being, just because you can doesn't mean you should, from a from a finances perspective, right? And so let's start by talking about qualifying for a home loan. Obviously, we're just starting out. We may have some people that are like, oh, like I'm already in a home. This is way past kind of where I am in life. But there are a lot of people in all walks of life, right? Like younger, a little bit older, already established, right? Yeah. That are still kind of trying to decide, like, you know, should I continue renting this home? Should I continue renting in general? When would be a good time for me to buy a home? But I think for us, the focus on the process and maybe some of the things that we went through, and, you know, because I think some of it might be helpful. I think that is one thing that God truly, like, not only guided us in, but we were receptive to it, right? Because I think God is always speaking, but are we in the position to listen? Yeah. So yeah, I think we have some to share. What do you think in terms of, like, what would you want to share when it comes to either just in general the home buying process or our specific kind of journey? Either is fine.
The home buying process, I think there's a lot of things you can do before, with preparation, before you even go to the bank. Again, part of our process, we did know. We went in with how much we wanted to pay per month. And with so many resources out there with calculators and with, you know, you can figure out how to get your interest rate down, things you can do, how much down payment you need to put down and all of that. So you can already start to save for a down payment. It doesn't necessarily mean you will use all of it towards the down payment, because there is a point where you can put, you know, you want to put down enough on the front end that you can avoid PMI, which is private mortgage insurance, because that is a monthly thing that will take your monthly payment up. So you want to put down enough to avoid that. But also, again, whatever amount that you want to get to, that down payment will help you get to that amount. And like I said, you won't use the whole thing, because there becomes a point that you can put down like an extra $5,000, and they'd be like, oh yeah, this knocked off 50 cents of your monthly, and you're like, I might as well save that, and you know, it's not worth it at that point. So you'd rather have too much than not enough when it comes to the down payment. And that's the same thing we did. We went in with more, and we got to that point. It's like, I'm not giving you another $10,000 to knock off $2. So yeah, come in with a down payment. Come in with how much you want to spend monthly for the budget. And one last thing, there's a 15-year and a 30-year mortgage. Now I know some finance people will push for the 15-year, and what that does, you want their intent is for you to pay it off faster, so you can reach financial independence sooner. But I would, with that 15-year, you're gonna pay a higher monthly. But I would encourage to do the 30-year, because you have a flexibility there that can, if things do get tight, you can still have that lower monthly. But I would say go in with the intentions of, I'm paying the house off between 5 and 10 years. So although I'm signing the 30-year, my intent is not to go to full 30 years, but between 5 and 10 years, or sooner if you can, my intent is to be super aggressive when I can. But if things do get tight, lose your job, you know, you might have to buy another car, buy something in between, and you have that flexibility to go to that lower mortgage rate. But like I said, do the 30 and have the intent to pay it off way sooner than that, if you can. Being aggressive with your mortgage.
Yeah. A lot of the things that you said gave me the thought of, we often go to the bank in any scenario, right? In this scenario, we're talking about like specifically a house, but really anything, right? A car, a loan, whatever it is. And we go in allowing them to dictate how we come out of there, right? I think oftentimes we may not do all the research that we can before. And even like you said, right? So I vividly remember, and I told you that I would share this, so we're on the same page here, but I vividly remember sitting in the lady's office, right, when we went to go apply for basically our, what is it, pre-approval letter. And you literally said, I forget even at this point, because that was 5 years ago, what they said that we actually qualified for. And you were like, no, like you can actually just put this number in there because we're not going higher than that. Like there's no possibility that regardless of what you're telling us that we qualify for, I'm not going over this number. So you can just cap the letter at that number. And so it just going in there prepared, right? And understanding that the only person who's going to have your best interest, and I'm not, we're not trying to talk down on the bank or anything like that. Like, thank God for the ones that work with people that don't have the best credit and all the things, right? But the only person who's going to have your best interest, like your best interest, is you, right? So do that research beforehand, do the saving on the front end. Because I think also one thing that we found out is because we had saved quite a bit, we saved pretty much for a year. So a year prior to actually buying a house, we said, okay, we've been renting for however long it had been, maybe a year, whatever it was. And we said, we're going to buy a house. So for a year, let's tighten up, right? We'll get into this in a different episode, but, really just tightened up and started to put these things into practice. But yeah, so when we went in, although we were first-time home buyers, we didn't qualify for any of the first-time home buyer perks because of how much we came in with. That's okay, right? And we don't, and what I'm saying is we don't have to rely on these things. These are like guardrails, right? When you think about the bank giving you a certain amount that they're saying, okay, this is what we approve you for. Okay, but what is your guardrail? How are you protecting yourself, right? Because remember, the bank is protecting themselves. So the measurements and the things that they put in place, the thresholds, they're not for your best interest. They're for their best interest. How much can I loan you that I think you will pay me back, but I'm also making something off of you, right? So I think that's one really important thing to remember, and one thing that I thank God for, right? Like, you had that wisdom even then to say, like, I hear you, but can you, in the letter, I just want you to put this, because I'm telling you now, I'm not going over that. And so it's just like, how often is that happening? Where it's like, no, I'm telling you. I get what you're saying, but I'm telling you what number to put.
Yeah.
Don't need more than that. Thank you.
I do that often.
Yeah.
The car. A lot of things.
But it's good, right?
Yeah. And I'll just say, that experience and that woman, remember, because, if you ever bought a house, they'll go and say, what's important to you. You want to be, school district, or you got to be in the city, or anything like that. And when we pretty much was like, we know the amount we want. Like, we came in, we know the amount we want. Nothing else really matters. And she was like, I've been doing this for a while. And she's like, this is how you buy a house. And she was like amazed, and she was like, this is how you come in with what y'all have to put down, with the amount that knowing, like you said, she's like, I can improve, with y'all, how much y'all putting down and how much I can approve y'all for, you can get approved for anything. But we was like, no, we want this amount. And she was amazed, and she was like, I've been doing this for a long time, and this, you guys know what y'all are doing. And she applauded us.
I didn't, but
she applauded us. She was like, this is how you buy a house. Like, this is the right way.
Yeah. But I think encouraging people to do that, right? Because a lot of times we get into these situations and we try to figure out later. We try to figure it out later, right? And I just think, like, as Christians, we have the wisdom to do it on the front end, right? Whatever it is, whether it's a home, a car, whatever it is, you don't have to go the same route that everyone else does, right? I think we live in a society that's like, I got pre-approved for, the higher the number, the more glamorous you look. But it's like, hey, how are you surviving after you max that loan out?
I'm about to say, not only that, but then you try to go get a house for that loan. And like you just said, the bank don't care what your monthly is. And you can't afford what they approved you for, but they don't care.
Well, and let's talk about that, right? So I looked at a ton of articles, and they pretty much all summarized all the elements as this. Basically, when you go and you try to apply for a home loan, what is it exactly that they're looking for, the banks, right? So they say a stable income, strong credit score, modest debt to income ratio, and documentation of your employment and assets, right? But here's the thing, guys. Here's the thing. So I went in and I used 2 mortgage calculators based on our current income, right? They ask you for your minimum credit card payments, which that's interesting.
$25.
$25, $50.
25, 35, that's the normal minimum
Right.
for credit cards,
Right.
25, 35.
But again, now step away from that scenario, right? I'm not interested, as the bank, I'm not interested in you ever paying that credit card off. I don't care if it takes you 5 years to pay $1,000 and you give $3,000 in interest.
Do they ask for the balance, or they just want to know?
They just, both of the ones that I did, and I'll tell you which ones I did. I did Forbes Advisor and I did Bankrate, and I'm going to add both of the links in the description so people can go and check them out themselves. They ask for the minimum balance on your credit cards. Like, what is your minimum payment?
Okay, so minimum payment.
Minimum payment.
So again, you can have a $10,000 balance,
Yes.
but they just want to know you're paying $25 towards that $10,000 every month.
Yes. And that's how they calculate your debt to income ratio. You're not in this to help me. You want me to be enslaved forever. Yes. So with that being said, I used 2 mortgage calculators, and I was shocked at this. I know I did share this with you, and then we stopped talking about it because we don't like to talk about these things ahead of time. Both of the calculators said that they would recommend, and they consider this conservative, they recommend a mortgage of $4,200 for us. Our mortgage is not even half of that, so we'll just
Half.
a third. I don't know math like that, but there's no way. $4,200. It's almost like they're just saying, like, can you survive even if it's paycheck to paycheck? Yep. All right, here you go. Guys, it's, again, there are some banks are more for the people than others. But just, I think this is wisdom that you're hearing it now, right? So again, as we learn, we take it and we do better, right? It doesn't matter what happened before, but like moving forward, do your own research before you go. Set your own boundaries and limitations. Do not let these institutions tell you what you should max out on, or the kind of house that you should live in based on anything. You have the ability to figure it out on your own and decide before you even get there. Because part of it, I think, sometimes is pressure, right? They do this day in and day out. Oh, this is how we always do it. But it takes us to say, hey, no, like, I get what you're saying, but I don't want to be enslaved to debt. I don't want to be enslaved to whoever, Capital One and whatever other cards are out there. Like, I want to do this the right way, right? Which also speaks to what you were saying about the 30-year loan. Yeah, take the 30-year loan, but man, like, hustle, right? Pay it off in 5. If, again, that's not what people do. That's not what's normal. I think, well, I haven't asked all my friends, like, hey, do you own your home yet? But I don't know that people, it's just a standard, right? Like, you have a mortgage. If you have a house, you have a mortgage, but that doesn't have to be the standard. And I'm sure as our following grows that we will kind of share our journey, right? And so our goal is to pay our house off in 7 years. And we're on track.
2 years left.
Yes, 2 years left. So we're on track to do that, even with our 2 baby girls, by God's grace. But it can be done differently, and it is so worth the hustle. Like, the discipline that God allows you to build in Him, and man, just the journey, like, it's worth it. It's worth it, right? Than to be sitting in a home that you couldn't truly afford in the first place, and now you're trying to figure out every month how you're going to pay that mortgage. Like, it should not be that way. Do not allow these institutions to put you in those situations, but you have to use wisdom before going in there. Don't fall for the bait. Don't.